so much for being here. It's so good to have you. Hi, Meredith loves road and trail running. Slowly. You're a lot faster than me, Meredith. Thanks for joining us. So we are here tonight just to talk about our focus for running in 2022. We've had a tough run, excuse the pun, for the last year or two. And it's always just good to draw breath, especially at the start of the year, to talk about ways to remain committed and achieve our own version of personal accomplishment. I'm very proud to be co-hosting tonight with my dear friend and colleague, Simon Finch from Empower Fitness. Simon and I have known each other since childhood, but we are very, very different runners, and we think about running and we approach running through very different filters. So I'm hoping that you'll get two very different sets of lenses on the subject tonight, and that we'll all be richer for it. So just to get started, I'm going to share my screen. So welcome. As you know, tonight we are going to talk about focus, training, and running through 2022. Just so that you know what to expect, I'm going to give a very quick little overview about me. I'm going to share my thoughts, the pros and cons of goals and the power of habits. And then we're going to talk about the practicalities, how to actually get the run done, how to get the training program done, and some hacks and tips, along with a broad variety of resources. So hopefully I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes, and then I will hand over to Simon, and then of course we'll collectively take questions. So a little bit about me. I am Andrea. I'm based in Sydney in Australia, and I am known locally as the Slow Coach. I've been running for about 12 years, and despite a pretty consistent approach to running, I've never got any faster, not even got any better in any real terms, but that's never really changed my outlook or my love of running. And I would plead with you not to judge my passion by my pace. I'm a member of 4 running groups, and I'm the slowest member of all of them. But I love running very much because of what it's done to my head and to my life and the friends that it's brought me, and the sense of accomplishment and all those things. So for me, it's really important that pace is not an important part of the running conversation. And that's really why I started the Slow Coach. Despite about 12 years of fairly consistent running, I couldn't really see a version of myself reflected in the mainstream running conversation. Generally, runners who are discussing the topics online or in magazines or on YouTube or whatever, just talk about running and think about running in terms of metrics: getting faster, getting stronger, getting fitter, getting better, achieving PBs, age-related gradings, places on the podium. And those things are absolutely fine. I don't mean to take away from any of it. It's absolutely valid, but it's not part of my reality. I could train for 100 years and I would never get a position on the podium. But the thing is, that doesn't make my experience of running any less valid. I run for mental health. I run for time on my feet. I run for time to think. I run for time away from my kids. And I run for a quiet sense of personal achievement. And that's the running conversation that I'm interested in having. And that's the kind of community that I'm interested in building. And it's very much the vision that I'm keen to share with you tonight. So, clarity. When we kick off our thinking about running, having a program in mind, or a set of goals, or a set of races for the year, I think that it's a very good place to start is achieving a sense of clarity. And for me, that starts with one question, the hardest question in the world to answer, and that is, what do you want? Ask a 3-year-old and they can answer that question instantly, but ask an adult, what do you want? Whether we're talking about life or whether we're talking about running, it's a really tough one. But let's start with that. Do you want to be able to run for the phone? Do you want to be able to run to the corner? Do you want to run a 2K or a 5K, or just be a member of a running community and, not get left behind? Are you thinking about a half marathon or a marathon or an ultra? Whatever it is, Each one of those things is very, very valid, but it's important to know it. It's important to name it, and it's important to visualize it. So without being too arty-farty, there is a lot of science behind visualization. If you can picture yourself running for that street corner and not being out of breath, hold that picture in your head. Do the same for your first 5K, your first half marathon, your first ultra, winning the UTA 100, whatever the case may be. Make sure that that picture is very, very clear in your head. And it's going to get you a long way in terms of remaining pinned to that goal. Goals, and I must stress this, don't work for everyone. I'm sure Simon might touch on this later. We actually have quite different points of view on this. So I'm just going to tell you what I think and what works for me. Goals have been a great tool for me in my running career as a way of holding myself accountable and measuring my progress, knowing where I am on the ruler as I approach, meet, exceed, or sometimes fail, depending on what the goal is. But I just like to know where I am and how I am progressing towards that. And it feeds that little addiction that I have towards some sort of vain sense of accomplishment. Having a goal is one thing. I would stress that it's a great practice to also be accountable. So once you've set your goal, once you've visualized it, tell someone about it. Post it on social media or write it down or do something that you kind of share it so that it becomes a promise, a contract, a social contract with someone else more than just yourself. That's going to help you make sure that you continue to show up. And then the big secret that I'll share with you tonight, because it took me, I think, 5 years to learn, is that I think it's good practice to have a second goal. So regardless of what your first goal is, let's say you want to run 2Ks, just have a little tab open at the back of your head that quietly says, and once I've done 2, I might think about doing 5. Or if your main goal is to do a 10K, maybe just quietly say to yourself, and I won't rule out the possibility of a half marathon. So that you don't do what I did, which is run my first 5K, train for it for weeks, achieve it, smash it, be thrilled with myself, and then spend 6 months on the couch. And then have to spend another series of weeks and months getting back to the 5K, feeling great again. Wonderful, did it, look at me, I'm awesome. And then spend another 6 months on the couch. That cycle of kind of allowing myself to take my foot off the brake, my foot off the accelerator, meant that I didn't keep going. And then that creates a lot of work because you've got to start from scratch again. The one point I would make, though, is that your second goal doesn't need to be bigger than your first goal. You don't have to go from 2Ks to 5Ks. You don't have to go from a half marathon to a marathon. That's not really what I'm saying. But your second goal could simply be, well, I'm going to run that 10Ks for a second time, but the second time I'm going to be happy while I run. I'm going to run with a smile on my face. I'm going to run it with a sense of ease, or I'm going to do it without so much of an injury. It's really important to not feed that relentless sense of addiction to, achievement and progress. That's not what it's about. But goals are just a way, as I said, of benchmarking yourself. Having said all of that, what I believe is far more important than a goal is a why, having a reason to run. And this is going to get you a lot further than any goal ever will. Now, I have a fairly complicated set of reasons for why I run. It goes back many years to watching members of my family and some dearly loved friends do a very painful battle with disease, with cancer. A couple of my dear friends have passed away during my running journey, and others have recovered and are doing really well, and I'm really proud of them. But in all of that, it's a lesson I see and have learned more than once, is that I have the one thing that they don't have. I have a healthy body. And for the most part, I am taking it for granted. So while they are in pain and fear and discomfort and all those things, I'm sitting on the couch watching daytime TV and guzzling chips. And I just decided that it was disrespectful to them to keep living that way. because I was taking my health for granted. And also because I wanted to give myself the gift that one day in the future, when I am not well, when I'm old or grey or whatever the case may be, I will at least have the privilege of looking back on a chapter in my life where I can say, I did well there. I had a healthy body. I used it. I marked it, and I will remember that. And that's my why. That's a big reason for why I go for every run. Honestly, I think about it on every run. I think about those people on every run, and I run on their behalf. I run because I can. Now, your why might be completely different. You might want to make your kids proud, or brag about it on social media, or chat about it at the office water cooler. You might want to earn a medal or a race t-shirt, or go overseas for the adventure. All of those things are fine. Whatever your why is, just articulate it for yourself, because the power of that will outlast any gimmicky, Instagram-worthy saying or any goal. It's gonna get you a long way. So once we've got our goals and our why, it's really great to think about our habits. Now, there's lots and lots of ways to start and maintain a running program, and you'll find millions of those options online. The only thing that's required to achieve your running progress is consistency. That's it. You will get there as long as you don't give up. If you haven't already, do yourself a favor and research the thinking around the power of 1%. There's a great book. There's a couple of TED Talks. There's some YouTube videos. The transformational power of just changing 1% of something and doing that every day. It usually takes less than 5 minutes, whether you want to run just a little bit longer, or train just a little bit harder, or eat just a little bit cleaner, or practice your gratitude on your run, or whatever the case may be. That 1%, when it's compounded over the course of a year, will take you to places that you can't even imagine are possible. It is important to remember that everything can be achieved through small steps. You only need to run to the next lamppost or the next street corner, or just get through the day. Small steps add up to big things. As long as you are brave, you show up, and that you're present. The miracle generally is not that you finished the run. The miracle is that you had the courage to start. As I've already said, your habit will be fueled by having a why, and that'll make sure that you show up consistently. Having said all of that, it's important to know that not every run and not every race is going to go well. Not everything is going to go to plan. Your training run might feel awful. You might develop an injury, or you might be, have worked really hard for a race, and then on the day it's not coming together, you're not feeling it, you're not performing. Things do get tough. When the going gets tough, if you're looking for strategies to get going, keep going, if things feel hard, let me introduce you to my friend Jeff Galloway. There is a running method called Jeffing, which is essentially combining walking and running. And this feels like it shouldn't be a thing, but it really, really is. You will get much further and achieve a much higher level of fitness if you break up your runs. If you need to, just walk for a minute and then run for a minute. Walk for a K, run for a K. Or, run for 10 Ks, walk for 2. But you can, Jeff. It's very much a thing. It's going to get you a lot further than trying to run hard from the outset. Chunking up a run can be really valuable. I've already mentioned it can be a good thing just to only run till you get to the street corner, or till you catch up with the guy in the red t-shirt. You only think about the portion of run in front of you, it'll make things feel a lot less overwhelming. Running to music can work for a lot of people, gives you a lot more energy. Have a mantra. If that works for you, I'll sometimes write things on my arm so that I can look at it when I'm not feeling great. One of my favorites is, it's actually a Lance Armstrong one, who's not somebody we should emulate, but he used to say, pain is temporary, but pride lasts forever. And I've always loved that. Finally, it can be a good idea to break every run into 3 parts. The first part you run with your head. You run it because you know you need to maintain a certain pace or a certain form and not go out too fast. You use your head and your logic to kind of control the run and think about what you want to achieve from it. You run the middle section with your legs. Your training kicks in, you're feeling good. You run, the fitness in you will carry you to whatever the sort of second third of the run will be. But by the third, you're probably getting tired. You might be looking forward to getting home and having a shower and you're pretty over it. And that's when you need to run with your heart. You run with your passion, you run with your why. Your heart is going to get you a lot further than your legs ever will. So that's all good and well, very pretty words, but what are the practicalities? It's really, really, really important to supplement any running with strength training. I can't stress this enough. If you've only got time to run 3 times a week, well, make it 2 times a week and do 1 session of strength training. That is your biggest insurance policy against injury and your biggest guarantee of longevity in running, which is really what we all want. There's nothing worse than getting injured, and the strength training is going to help you not to be. There are a million free strength training programs on YouTube, or you can come up with your own, or you can consult a coach. But any combination of things like calf lifts and deadlifts and squats and lunges and some banded toe taps, just make sure you develop those nice strong legs, strong core, strong back, prevent those debilitating injuries that generally catch up with us. And if you don't already have a training plan, it doesn't matter if you're trying to run 2 kilometers or 200 kilometers, but having a plan and sticking to it is going to be almost essential as over and above just winging it. If you don't have a training plan, find one online. They're a dime a dozen. And if you don't like any of those, well, feel free to reach out to either Simon or myself and we can help you design one. Don't forget the importance of rest, sleep, and nutrition. Those 3 things are as important, if not more important, than your actual running. And as I've already touched on, just know that not every race or not every run will feel great. And that process of failing, that process of resting, that process of detraining is actually as important as the run and as the training and as the progress is. It's really important to know about things like step down weeks and rest. If you're doing a long training program, say a 12 or a 16 or a 20-week training program, and it's fairly intensive, it's quite good to schedule every 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. You have a week where you go really, really easy so that we don't have this continuous, relentless improvement, that your body actually has time to draw breath and take a break. And the science behind all of that means that you will actually get fitter, stronger, and do better overall than if you go flat out from day one. Your rest days are as important as your training days. Don't skip them. There's nothing worse than running 7 days a week. You'll do far more damage than benefit. So please don't underestimate rest. Then if you need something to help keep you focused and pinned to a goal, sign up for a race. Those are a great way to force yourself to train. And if you don't want to do a race, think about virtual challenges. There are hundreds of those as well. A great one is called Run Down Under, where you sign up and you can actually run all the way around Australia. You get a little map with a graphic that tracks your progress over a couple of years, and it connects you with a very like-minded community of runners who are doing the same challenge. And it's a lot of fun to see your progress. And if you'd like to, think about hiring a coach. Either Simon or myself or anybody in your network will certainly help you, even if it's just a once consultation, will help you identify tools and strategies that are going to work for you. It's a great way to keep yourself on track. Okay. Finally, I'm nearly there. Sorry, I said it would be 15 minutes. I'm running over a little bit, but there are some great running resources that really do wonders for kind of gamifying the process and making it fun. Join a run club. If you don't already know about it, please join us. If you're local to Sydney, there is a North Shore Running Club that takes place every Thursday night at 6 p.m. at Warramute Oval in St Ives. It's free. You are all very, very welcome. We have walkers, runners, joggers, grannies, children, dogs on a leash. The more the merrier. And there's a social component too. So bring a drink and stay around afterwards, have a little bit of a chat. I'm a member of 4 running clubs. I'm the slowest member of all of them. It hasn't marred my enjoyment of any of them whatsoever. If you don't already know about Parkrun, do yourself a favor. It's a free timed 5K that takes place all around Australia and indeed all around the world every Saturday morning. It's a great community. My slow coach company offers fairly regular social runs. We go slowly, we run for company, enjoying the local streets. We always finish with coffee. If you want to follow my social media profiles, you'll get lots of notifications of those. There are hundreds of online forums, and I actually like to use Pinterest. Once Pinterest knows that you have an interest in running, it's going to feed you motivational slogans and theory, coaching plans. It's a really good way to just kind of feed your knowledge. Join some Facebook groups to do with running. Join Strava. You don't even need a smartwatch. You can just use Strava on your phone to track your runs. If you're a stats nerd like me, it's going to let you know about your progress. It's also going to connect you to other groups and other runners in your area. Your smartwatch probably comes with a training plan. You can get your watch to coach you. If you don't know how to do that, just Google. There's so many ways to make your tech work for you. YouTube. Once YouTube knows what you like to watch, it'll feed you fantastic content. I absolutely love a UK show called The Running Channel, which is basically a TV network that specifically just talks about running. Everything from absolute beginners to trail ultras and everything in between. Books. There's a host of running books, and I will share my favorites with you in the notes, which I'll email out with this. But reading, all of these ways are just a great way to keep your mind thinking about running, excited about running, and all those things. I'll just end with this, which is that despite being a running coach, despite being a pretty committed runner for, 12 years or so, having done a broad range of almost every distance, half marathons, marathon, and even my first ultra last year, I will share a vulnerability, which is that I actually don't always love running. I don't always love running. Some runs are hard, some runs suck. Even the good runs are not necessarily particularly fantastic. But what running has done for me is untangled the knots in my head. It's connected me to a tribe. It's given me friends and a sense of health and a sense of progress. And even though I don't always love running, I always love who I am after a run. And that's why I do it. So thank you for your patience. I think I went over my 15 minutes. I'm really sorry. Simon, I've eaten into your time, but that's enough from me. So from the slow coach perspective of things, you might like to hear from the fast coach. Simon is an absolute elite level performer. He held the 1999 All Africa Triathlon Championship title. He's competed professionally all over the world. In Europe and the UK, and he qualified for Kona, Hawaii Ironman, which I'm sure you know is incredibly difficult to do. So it's not possible to have 2 more diverse runners in one room than Simon and I, but as you'll see, anyone can run. Simon, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. Great to hear from you. A number of things from there about visualization, which I also use myself. Unfortunately, as much as I visualize Kipchoge, I never can run quite as fast as him, but fingers crossed. Also, I want to mention the one thing about the mind and the mind power. The mind always gives up way before the body does. So that's something that I kind of got from watching some of the SAS documentaries and stuff like that, how they push people to the limits in those sort of environments. So some things to think about, the power of the mind. Anyway, so moving on to my kind of part of the discussion, I guess I haven't really done much in terms of presentations, unfortunately, so you just have to stare at my ugly face for the next 10 minutes. But I'll talk about periodization. So what is that in planning? What I think it can be varied. It depends on what kind of athlete you are and where you're at. You've got Olympic athletes that are training for a 4-year plan. And then kind of the day-to-day people who are probably planning for a race in the next 3 months, 6 months, or might even have a yearly plan with a number of races within that year. So most commonly you would think of a yearly plan with maybe one to three main races within that period, or maybe just focusing on one event over a 4 to 8 week plan. So when we're looking at periodization and how we can build a plan, I just want to touch on some of the things that I use and have used in my career that really helped, and how we put them together and how we put plans together within what you can maybe take away in your plans. All we want to do is work with periods of work and periods of rest, alternating load and recovery, building up and then allowing time to rebuild. It's important to know that you're not actually building yourself up or getting any stronger when you're actually training. It's during the period of rest or recovery that you actually incrementally just get a little bit stronger for the next time you go out. So the recovery phase is equally as important as whatever you're doing for the actual active phase. So just bear that in mind. And this is what comes through in the theme that in my training and the way we put it together. It's also important to work in cycles where you're increasing and incrementally increasing load and then recovering from it. As your body, it makes adaptations. If you're just doing the same thing day in, day out for months on end, your body will eventually adapt to that and you'll start to plateau. So if you're looking to improve on things, you want to stress yourself. You want to push yourself a little bit further at certain points in the year or in your training plan and get that recovery phase and get a bit stronger the next time you go out. There's also a lot of information that you can gather from that recovery phase during your preparation. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. So I'll bring that back. So these periods of effort and periods of rest informs the basic concept of macro and micro cycling in training. At a macro level, I look at a yearly plan where you have periods of training, periods of racing, and then an off-season or a rest period. No matter what level of athlete you are, we should have different focuses during our training plan. This then builds into our yearly plan where we have an early season, where we can focus on strength training, cross training. We then move into more and more specific periods where we're getting close to the race or whatever goal you have in mind. And we build really the adaptations that we're looking to improve on are becoming more and more specific, more honed to whatever event you're looking to compete in, whatever you're aiming for. So to expand on this a little bit, at the start of the year, we would begin with easy aerobic training mixed with general strength training. That general strength training could be anything from cross training, going to the gym, swimming, cycling, doing other sports, skiing, whatever it might be. So nothing really specific, running focused, but it gives the body ability to possibly use muscles that it's not normally used to doing during the running phase or the running training phase, and gives you a little bit more strength in some muscles that you might not be using 100% of the time when you're running, and gives you that stability and that core strength that can be then leveraged later on in the year. As we progress through the plan, then we move to more run-specific training sessions. So the strength training that you would have done in the early season would then become more running focused. So the strength would be possibly moving from just going to the gym and doing a few things there. You would do specific hill repeats or something of that factor. Maybe run form or technique work, specifically looking at your run form and technique. And we can also then start to incorporate speed intervals, run speed intervals, and then they can be varying in length depending on the event that you're training for, whether it be long or short events on that speeding, and we increase that kind of adaptations to being more and more specific closer you get to your event. So as our training becomes more and more specific, the type of quality training we do will depend on the event we're training for. So the 5,000 meter event on the track will incorporate fairly high level, high intensity workouts, more so than, say, if you're training for a marathon. The training for an Ironman will incorporate longer speed endurance sessions, as opposed to training for a 400 meter track event, for another example. So it all depends on what you actually have in mind and what your goal is. So let's dive down from those macro levels, or monthly or yearly monthly sort of level, to the little bit deeper to the weekly schedule. What I kind of look at is the micro cycle level, which is really where the nuts and bolts of training is. You start there, it's the beginning of the week, and you end the end of the week, and then everybody kind of works with the week blocks, I guess. And I think Andrea's touched on that. We need to incorporate a rest day. And in general, across all cycles, 85% of your training should be easy aerobic running training. The remaining 15 to 20% would be focused on quality, strength, high intensity, or semi-intense training, depending on the event you're training for again. So during the week, we would look to space out those high intensity workouts. We generally want to be fresh for these intensity workouts, so we can indeed hit those sessions in terms of pace, heart rate, or power, whatever your training target is for that session. Going into those sessions tired, when they're back to back, or you haven't had enough recovery from your previous session, you're not going to be able to achieve what was really the goal for that session. So you want to be making sure you're giving yourself enough rest, having an easy day in between, or a rest day even, and then really getting the most out of those harder sessions. That's not to say that every session is going to be done on fresh legs. For sure, an Ironman training that I've done and coach, you need to be able to get off the bike and run a marathon. So there are sessions where you get off and you will be running on tired legs, and we purposely pull those into the training sessions as well. So during these macro and micro cycles, or monthly, weekly cycles, we start to paint a picture. We start to learn how we are adapting. We adjust the plan. We get feedback. We move. We need to move. We need that time to recover so that we can see how we're adapting, if we're improving things, or we're just slowly getting worse and worse, and we're not getting the recovery that we need. So that feedback is very important. And it specifically comes into importance when we're looking at that final taper period before a race. Now, I know for most, and even myself, that taper period is quite a nervous period. You often ask the question, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? Am I getting fat? Am I getting lazy? I've got a race in a week and I'm not feeling great. If you do this cycle where I'm looking at 3 weeks build and 1 week recovery and a month, you get to learn how you adapt to those recovery weeks. You get to learn what works for you. Some people like to take a full 3 days off before a race and do nothing. Others like to continue training, albeit at a small percentage of what they would normally do, and they race perfectly fine on that. So during this you can test it during the preparation phase, during these recovery weeks, and you get to know how your body adapts to that. Because tapers are quite personal. As I said, some people enjoy doing and training all the way through to the race itself, and take time out. The taper itself as well would depend on the event you're doing. Typically 1 to 3 weeks, the longer taper for a longer event, and you need to be recovered. And obviously the longer events, you'll probably be training a lot more, so you want to give yourself ample time to recover and get to that start line nice and fresh. So in summary, you can see this common theme where you've got cycles of load, recovery, or effort and adaptation, both at macro levels and micro levels. And you can even take that to a further level where you're actually doing an interval session. I don't know if many of you have done that, but if you're doing 400-200 meters and you've got a rest, you always have a rest period in between. So you're loading your system, recovery, you're loading your system, and recovery. You're seeing the effects of that. You're seeing how you adapt to that. You see how you're improving on that. So of course, all this is a pretty high level, but I'm hoping that kind of theme is coming across, and how you, instead of just plodding along and doing the same thing week in, week out, think about loading the system a little bit more, and then giving yourself a bit of recovery time after 3 weeks of doing that, and seeing how you react to that and adjusting your program accordingly. This cyclic way of training as well gives you that valuable feedback at the end of every rest week. I normally program in a bit of a time trial of some sort, or a test of some sort. I do that myself, so you can see how you're progressing through the year, and you can adjust your program accordingly. How you're feeling, where you can push your next block or next month of training a little bit further. If you need to dial it back a bit because you're still pretty tired after that rest week, you can adjust your program. That's what it's all about. It's getting that feedback and adjusting your program to your specific needs, because we're all individuals, and we all adapt to things differently at different paces. So getting that constant feedback is important and valuable, not only at taper phase, but during and planning your specific training during the year as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I think feel free to get in touch with me if you have any specific questions outside of this conversation, or need any help with planning and scheduling. More than happy to help and shed my advice.
Thanks, Si. Yeah, some great advice there. I love the metaphor of the cycles. So that concludes the presentations tonight. We are now here for as long as it takes to answer any questions you might have. Feel free to pop them in the chat, or just unmute yourselves and ask, whatever's more comfortable. Does anybody have any questions for either myself or Simon?
I've got a question.
Yeah, Meredith, hi.
I don't work regular hours or days. I don't work regular days. So it's really hard to plan things the way I'd like to.
Yep.
I don't know how to manage that.
It is a challenge. I have my kids one week and the next week I don't. So my training kind of has to accommodate for that, as they are small kids. So I need to look after them for a week, and my training is fairly limited. Yeah, I guess the programs, as I say, can be quite and should be specific to your circumstances, but also your goals and your preparation and all the rest. And we spoke about goals. I'm not a big fan of one major goal for a year. I like the cyclic way of doing it. You can get the feedback, and the goal could be just to get through the next month and see how you're progressing, etc., etc. So breaking those bigger goals down to micro goals, and seeing your progress during that progression. And you might not even make the start line for the big race, but you've got all these goals or wins along the way that you don't feel so bad about not making that start line. But for your specific environment, I for myself adapt and doing a slightly bigger week when I don't have my kids, and then the next week when I do have them, cut it down a little bit. So my training plan isn't quite cyclic in that it increases every 3 weeks. It's kind of 1 week on bigger, and then I have a slightly smaller week. So slight modification on that, but still getting that kind of feedback rest period for a week when I've got my kid, as much rest as I can with 2 young kids. But yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to train, and there's a lot of coaches out there that will tell you all different things. And I think it's a matter of finding what works for you, your environment, your time allowance, and when you've got time to do it. I know for a fact a lot of people train early mornings, and that suits most races, because most races start early morning. But some people can only train in the evening. So I would say to them, actually, physiologically, the body is best at around 4 or 5 in the afternoon for training. So training at that time is by no means a hindrance. You'd obviously try and get some early morning runs in, so you're not kind of waiting at the start line falling asleep. But there's the adaptation and modification everywhere that you can make and still meet goals.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I would also just say that your Meredith, if you know that your week is unpredictable, or that your month doesn't follow a set pattern, one of the things we do as runners is we rehearse everything. We don't just rehearse our running, we rehearse our nutrition, we rehearse our sleep, we rehearse our mindfulness. And you figure out what works for you and what doesn't. So if you need an unstructured week, then your running becomes as much rehearsing that as anything. Yeah. You might want to just approach it for a series of plan 5 sessions, but it doesn't matter if you do them all in a week, or if it takes you 10 days to do them, or a fortnight. And as Simon said, you do some in the morning and some in the afternoon. That kind of, over time, your body's going to adapt to that in its own way, and you'll be able to follow an unstructured plan, and you'll get as much benefit out of it as a runner who's running every Thursday at 6 a.m. Do you know what I mean? You'll be able to find something that works for you.
Yeah.
Great question, though.
It's something to I'm conscious of the OCD nature of runners and athletes in general, where they've got to train, they've got to get out and train. They train at 6 in the morning, they do it day in, day out. They feel lost if they don't. It's obviously helpful to a certain point, but it can be detrimental and if it gets excessive. You've got to listen to your body. You need your body to recover and learn from that and see how you're adapting. Driving yourself into the ground over months is not good for anyone. So that period of rest and adaptation, and not stressing if you miss a session, like nutrition. To me, nutrition, all these diets, they don't last. So what you need to do is get in tune with your body. And if your body says, hey, I feel like a chocolate tonight, have a chocolate. It's not going to break the bank. If you're having chocolate every night, that's probably a habitual thing and not what your body needs. It's just a habit. That's where it needs to be changed. But the odd ice cream, the odd beer here and there, it's not going to break the bank. So yeah, just making sure that you're still in touch with what you want to do, and don't get too carried away with things, obsessive about things.
Yeah, great advice. I can see a couple of questions in the chat. Sally's asking, how many rest days should you have during a week to avoid injury? Are you hoping I'll say 7?
Well, that'll be a solution.
Sally, it's a good question, and not an easy one to answer, because there is no set answer, and the answer is going to be different for every single runner. So it depends on your maturity as a runner. It depends on your availabilities during the week. It depends what you're training for, because if you're working hard towards a marathon PB, you're going to have far fewer rest days than you do if you're in a recovery phase or a period of detraining. But generally, it's not a good idea to run 7 days a week. Beginner runners, I would say 2 or 3 runs a week is probably plenty, certainly if you're still working towards that 5K goal. Beyond that, 4 or 5 runs is fine. I would say 6 is the max, depending, of course, on the load. At least one rest day, complete rest, preferably 2 would be my advice. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, it all depends where you're at. Obviously, if you're fairly advanced in your training, I myself have rest days, but I generally, when I'm fully into training back in the day, I'd do something in that day. It would be something fairly light and soft pedaling, or just an easy swim or something like that. But nowadays, yeah, I take a day off and take a full day off. So it all goes back to that feedback from what your body's telling you. If you're waking up the next morning after running and you're tired, you're sore, you can hardly get up the stairs, take a day off. Listen to your body. Your body's telling you it needs a bit more rest. Monitoring of heart rate. I don't train to heart rate, but I monitor it in terms of how the norm is going over a period of time, say a week. If it's slowly incrementing, then probably an indication that you're overtraining and your body's not recovering in time. So things like that. There's a lot of indicators that can tell you whether you need to take rest or not. And it's getting that level, getting to that state where you are fairly in tune with your body, and you know, yep, I need to have a rest now and take a day off, or no, it's just I need to just get my ass kicked and get out there and do something.
Simon, Kirsten's asking, can you tell us more about the 4 p.m. time that's the best to train at? I find I am so sluggish at that time of the day, so I find that very interesting. Yeah,
that actually came up. My brother does a sports podcast, and they had I think it was a sleep therapist or scientist, and talking about sleep and the effects of sleep. And some people can actually deal with minimal sleep for 5-6 hours a day, whereas others might need 8 to 10 hours. So it just goes back to the same old, people are different, everybody's different. But the general consensus is that, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, your body's fully awake. It's the blood's flowing. Obviously, it depends on what you've had for lunch. You generally are able to do harder or higher intensity workouts at that time, rather than early morning where your body's still, probably cold from sleeping or not fully awake. So generally trying to do something fairly light aerobic in the morning and harder sessions in the afternoon. If you are doing at that level where you're doing double session days, that would be kind of the general consensus of recommendation. But again, most races are early morning, so having those harder sessions in the morning as well, pulling those in when you need to in your program to make sure you're well adjusted and ready for race day is important as well. That's another one there about heart rate target. Yeah.
What is the heart rate target for an easy run with reference to the maximum heart rate?
Yeah. So thanks. It's for me, it's like when we say an easy run, how do I know what an easy run is? Because there's like really slowly jogging and maybe walking up those hills, and there's kind of maybe, doing a little bit more, but it's not, it's not going to kill you. You're not going to feel really tired the next day. So how do you kind of find what that easy is that you're talking about, that sort of 85%?
I don't personally run with heart rate anymore. I feel it's too varied. It's not reactive enough. I work with power, so there are power meters for running now. They're more accurate, and they immediately they show immediate effects as soon as you start running up a hill, etc. And it works out, calculates your power. But generally around 65 to 80, 75% of heart rate, and I use that for power. It's the same. We have a threshold or maximum that we use as well. So if you don't have heart rates, you would want to run with someone and being able to hold a conversation, that sort of level of running. I myself, when I'm out for a long run, and it is an easy long run, and I go up a hill and I'm finding I'm pushing it a little bit, I stop, I walk. You don't want to get into that phase where you've merged or muddied the training session from an easy run to a steady run to interval run up a hill, and you're basically doing all sorts within one session. You should, according to your plan, whatever's planned for that day, stick to it. If it's an easy run, stick to it. Make sure you're not stressing your body running up a hill at max heart rate.
So I think this is where my question comes from, because I'm at Pennant Hills and I've not run with this club yet. I just was recently kind of connected in, and there's a 200-meter change in elevation around where I am. So sometimes I get to those hills and I'm like, oh God, this is making it so hard to get back into running. And I wonder whether I should, just walk, and it sounds like maybe I should, or if I should try and just go to a location where, maybe it's mostly flat for 4Ks or something, and at least I'm doing that amount, and then I can maybe walk the hills and then run the flats to be like you say, you're consistent. Because otherwise it's a little bit, it's really quite challenging especially when you're starting again and you're starting to get your fitness and your motivation, and you hit a really big hill and you just think, I feel like I should be running up it. But then I think it's too hard. I don't want to.
No, absolutely.
You don't have to.
Unfortunately, there's no flat in Sydney. So
Yeah.
even for the North Shore Run Club that me and Andrea got running, we chose kind of the end of Warrimoo, if you know St. Alp's Chase. It's probably the flattest kind of area we've found, just for that reason, because we want to keep it flat. I run up that way pretty much most of my running because it is the flattest route I've got in the neighborhood. But yeah, definitely either drive somewhere along to the beach and you can run on a flat course, or walk up those hills. And it's not to say you just walk up leisurely, but you can walk up with a bit of maybe pacey walk. But as long as you're keeping that heart rate in that zone where you can have a chat to someone, that would be an aerobic, easy run. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can vary it very much depending on what your plan is for the day, or even just how you're feeling. And it may even be determined by what kind of sleep you had the night before, or where you're in your monthly cycle. But it really is important to keep a running program varied. So there's no pressure to run hills during an easy run. And as Simon's already said, if you can make a phone call or have a chat to a friend, then you know that that's your easy run level. If your program requires hill training, well, then you're all set. You've got everything on your doorstep, and you can use those hills on the days that you need to do the harder effort.
Yeah. And remember, 85% minimum should be easy aerobic running. That's a huge chunk, right? And a small amount is then left to specific targeted harder sessions.
Great question, though. Anything else? Any other questions? Well, thanks so much, everybody, for coming. Great turnout. I really hope that you got some value out of it. I hope that we've done what we can to help share our love of running and help keep you focused and committed to a great year ahead. Simon and I are both accredited coaches, so if we can help you with your running plans in any way, please reach out to us. All our contact information will be in the email you receive in the next day or two, or you can just follow us on social media. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for being a runner. Thank you for making running so awesome, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, everyone.